which is probably the most altruistic, A, and B, the most stupid thing I've ever done in my life. But it just became if we go as a family. So we left, me and Rob Turtledove and Paul Turtledove and Neil Rosenfeld flew out one night on a Viscount, played clubhouse the whole way to Johannesburg, and I never went back. I went back once for my best mate's 21st, and which would be 1981, and I've never ever been back. So, and then it was still Zimbabwe Rhodesia. So I do this whole thing that I'm this big hard-ass Rhodesian. I was born in Johannesburg, and I've actually never been to Zimbabwe. The closest I got was going to Zimbabwe Rhodesia. But that last period towards the end was distinctly uncomfortable. Anti-Semitism was rife, certainly at Prince Edward, and the teachers didn't really care. There were people were getting blown up. There was the bomb at Woolworths in town, and one of the boys I was in a play with at school, Andrew Donald, was killed in that blast. Going to school and seeing the flag at half-mast was becoming more and more common. Guys that I played water polo with and swam with, and really cool guys like Fanner, who was really bright, went to the army, and the next thing you knew, he was dead. And this was all over Rhodesia, and there were some really funny moments, I mean, I used to get the shit kicked out of me because I do Ian Smith impersonations. I'd sit at the back of the class like this and talk. I did not close the border post for nothing. And then, of course, you're a communist. Anything you did in Rhodesia that didn't fit in with Ian Douglas Smith, you were immediately a communist. And holidays in Mozambique, I miss. Joyce Cole would spend 2 weeks baking Cornish pasties and we'd eat them in the car before it had left the driveway. Man, she made a good pasty, Auntie Joyce. And a very good almond tart. I'll get her to make you an almond tart. She makes a really good almond tart. And Mozambique for the holidays, and up to Inyanga, where I learned to fly fish, which is what brought me to New Zealand in the first place. I'm a trout bum. And then it got, we used to go to Kariba. The Grosbergs had this incredible boat on Kariba. And then suddenly Kariba got a bit hot. I love that, Rhodesian parlance. Oh, it's hot. It means you're taking your life in your own hands. And Inyanga got a bit hot. And if you went to Malseta, you could hear the landmines going off at night because something had stood on them. And then it just became... And my parents, like a lot of parents there, didn't say anything because if you were known to be leaving and the government found out, it was illegal that I could leave because I was of army age. So, yeah, I mean... I flew out playing clubhouse with Bosie and the Turtledoves and never ever went back. They all left. So we moved. My father never got the frying pan and fire email, so he moved to Johannesburg. And while I had a very good time in Joburg, and I was a great pipi jola, I really never liked Joburg because let's not kid ourselves. Rhodesia was as racist as anywhere I've ever lived, and I've been to Queensland, which is saying something. But it was so overt in South Africa. It was so overt. It was so oppressive. And just hang on, my dog's got some. Paley, come here. Sorry. And my mother worked for the Institute of Race Relations, which wasn't exactly an advisable job to have in 1985 in South Africa. I mean, I went with her to Desmond Tutu's 50th wedding anniversary because my father refused to go. And the police would break into the house and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I'm not saying she was part of a terrorist cell, but anything you did that was subversive in South Africa, people knew. And in the mid-'80s in South Africa, the press in South Africa had more restrictions than the Russian press did in the mid-'80s. I never ever liked it. I did very well there. Don't get me wrong. I had a good life and all of that, but I couldn't wait to get out. I've now lived in New Zealand as long as I've lived anywhere, I think. I've been here about 15 or 16 or 17 years. Who knows? I don't know. And I miss it every day. I miss Rhodesia. Not because it was Rhodesia. I miss what is now Zimbabwe. I miss the place and the smells and the people. And my dog speaks Chalapalapa, and my daughter speaks Shona and Chalapalapa and Afrikaans and Arabic and Portuguese and Italian. Yeah, so I still speak a bit of the language. Robert Turtledove and I have, quite a bit of fun. We Klumalo, Chilabalaba, static. And I miss it. I feel, in a way, dispossessed, as if something was taken from me, which is it's absolute nostalgia, because if anything was taken from anyone, it was taken from the black people of what was then, well, what was it? The Federation, and then Nyasa land, and this and that, and then Southern Rhodesia, and then Rhodesia, then Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, then Zimbabwe, and now just a complete fuck up. But those are the people who lost the most. But yet I lost so much. And I've got mates who still live there. It's, they who were Rhodesians, now Zimbabweans, and it's where they're from. And Bertie Bondi, Buddha will have his head on a coin soon, man. And David Reeler, he's just so brave. To be an openly gay man in Rhodesia was bad enough, but through Mugabe, and he hasn't ever moved. This is what I am. So there's some incredibly, and black people that I'm in touch with, incredibly brave people trying to make a difference. And to this day, I regret I never went to the army in Rhodesia. Not because it was right or wrong, because I think I missed out on a murder big adventure. But my best mate always says to me, thank God you weren't here, because we both would have got killed. But there's still part of me that suspects it might have been quite a bit of fun. I don't know. I never studied. So when we got to South Africa, I plugged N levels. So my old man said, right, you can go to Damlin College. If you slug matric, you go into the army. And I said to him, just so we're clear on this, before I even start, if I slug matric, I slug matric, but there's no way I'm doing the army. I'll just run away. Whatever. He's a very gentle and mild man. And patient, infinitely patient. Christ, he put up with me for years. He still puts up with me. And I went to Damlin, did matric, passed, and just scraped a university pass. Straight. And went to Wits for 6 months. And came home and said to my parents, I can't do this. It's not for me. Which is kind of, Jewish boys don't go home and tell their parents they're not going to university. Certainly not then. Certainly not in 1979 or 80 or whatever it was. And they said, okay, what are you going to do? And I said, I'll get a job. So I went and I can't remember, article clerk at an accountant or something, got a job, made some rands, ront. Started jolling, went badly off the rails in my late teens and 20s and 30s, and let's be brutally honest, 40s. 30s, till I was 40. Then got a job at KLM Airlines, which was fantastic, man. I was 21. I was traveling the world. I was in the sales department. To this day, I don't know what that means. And I went to the Caribbean, and then Dan Jarvis phoned me on a stolen credit. I'm telling on you, Jarvis. He phoned me, he stole a credit card in New York, or found it, and he phoned me and he said, I'm in New York. So I flew to New York. He was living in the basement of a tire factory on corner Avenue A in Houston. I mean, it was like out of a movie. There was me and Jarvis, 21 years old, running around New York together with sugar. Fantastic. Peter Cohen was there. We were going to the Pyramid Club. Fabulous. Then I went back and I said to my folks, right, I'm out of here. Because I'd never signed the papers to do the army. So my father kept going, they're going to come to the door and arrest you. And I kept saying, don't tell them I live here. And then I said, I'm going. I went to the Caribbean. And there was, in those days, Aruba. It was the only part of the Caribbean that South Africans were allowed into. I had travel experience. I spoke Afrikaans. So I got a job there. I was going to be a tour guide. I'd take the Dutchmen around when they came to point at the beaches and go, Durban is much better than this. Anyway, and then my old man phoned and said, you've got to come home, your mother's sick. So I didn't know what sick was. I went home and June had cancer. So my plan was always, I told everyone in Aruba, I'm going to go back, see what's wrong with my mother, and then I'll be back. And I never went back. And I'm very glad I didn't. We were very, very close, me and June, in case you haven't figured that out. And then, so I hung around, and I was a DJ at Raffles in Cape Town, and so, I had career path after career path. Smoked a lot of weed, made a lot of cuck, and was fitting car radios with some mates of mine. We had a place, Executive Autosound in Ilovo. And a guy came in one day in a new, by now I was what? 28, 29, didn't have a job. My father was so proud. Things were really going well. And this guy came in a new Land Cruiser. And he said, how much to fit the radio? And I said, there are three prices, bro. You know, if you go sit in the office, it's $50. If you sit in the car and watch, it's $100. If you sit in the car and watch and offer advice, it's $150. So he sat in the car and he watched and he offered advice, and I charged him $150, and he went, and he came back about 2 days later. And I thought something's gone wrong. So I walked up and went, yeah, what? And he said, you're wasting your time doing this. Come work with me. I work in advertising. So I went, nah, we were having fun, man. Executive Autosound, pulling checks, going on holiday. It was riotous. It was like one of those really bad Weekends at Bernie movies. And then I had a spat with one of them, I can't remember, and I phoned the guy up and I got a job in advertising. So I worked in advertising in Johannesburg for 7 or 8 years. Did very well, made some ads, made some money, and then got offered a job by South Africa. By now, this would have been so 95 or 96, was just looking like Rhodesia. It was deja vu all over again. You know, the rand was worth shit. Crime was through the roof. And I got offered a job, in all places, Dubai. So I said, okay, I'll go to Dubai for a while. So I went to Dubai. I was a regional creative director for a very big American agency. Africa, Middle East, India, credit card, predilection for good wine, cheap women. It was brilliant. And then went from there to London for a bit. From London to Auckland, and from Auckland to Melbourne, then back to Auckland. Then got out of advertising, because advertising is a young man's game unless you own the agency. And for the last 8 years, I've been living here in Gisborne, beautiful Gisborne. That's my story. No, copyright. I was a creative director. I wrote the ads. I had the ideas. I don't know where it came from, but all I can tell you is that when I was at school, being creative was actually not good, because it wasn't recognized. You were being a rebel. And I really struggled at school. I did really well till I was, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 7. And then I started going, why? And I don't want to be learning geography. I want to be coloring in. And I don't want to be doing maths. I want to be playing with words. And today I have a daughter now. I won't take you through my disastrous, and not now, very happily married, beautiful girl. But I have a daughter from a passing, it's the happiest mistake I ever made. And she's incredibly creative, blows me off the beat. She's brilliant at creativity. But now at school, that is recognized, that it's fostered. When I was at school, it was shut up, learn this. And I'd go, I'm not shutting up. I mean, that one of the reasons I went to war with Olive Warburton was because of that. Teaching was so, you learn this, you do that. And